Belgium is investigating a pro-Russian influence network suspected of operating at the heart of the European institutions in Brussels.
Russian President Putin said Moscow could agree to ceasefire without conditions imposed by Ukraine.
Archaeologists in Pompei have uncovered a unique banquet hall with frescoes on its walls. The US Agency for International Development says famine is already likely occurring in the northern Gaza Strip.
Belgium is investigating a pro-Russian influence network suspected of operating at the heart of the European institutions in Brussels. Prime Minister Alexander De Croo said Moscow had approached and paid members of the European Parliament to spread the Kremlin's propaganda in Europe. He confirmed that his judicial authorities had opened a formal investigation.
On the national level, our judicial authorities have now confirmed that this interference is subject to a prosecution. The cash payment did not take place in Belgium, but the interference does. As Belgium is one of the seats of EU institutions, we have a responsibility. And our responsibility is to uphold that every citizen's right to a free and safe vote can be maintained.
A Czech-led investigation recently dismantled a Russian propaganda operation channeled through Dutch-listed company Voice of Europe, which presented itself as a news media. It has interviewed at least 16 members of the European Parliament. The Czech probe led to further arrests in Poland, and Czech intelligence officials say politicians from as many as 6 EU countries could face allegations. It comes just 2 months before EU voters head to the polls in June, and amid mounting fears Kremlin proxies could be using information manipulation to skew the democratic vote.
In Europe, we deserve elections where people make their choices, and where, of course, we will respect the result. But it's the Europeans who will make their choices, not other countries who would be trying to influence us.
While Belgium's investigation is conducted, De Croo called on the EU's criminal justice agency Eurojust to discuss the issue. He will also raise the issue when all 27 EU leaders convene in Brussels next week.
The nationality of the 39-year-old man fatally shot following a confrontation with a gang in Stockholm has been confirmed as Polish. The incident occurred as the man and his 12-year-old son were en route to a swimming pool. Reports suggest the pair encountered a group of youths in an underpass, resulting in a fatal gunshot.
Att skjuta ihjäl en person som inte har någonting med någonting av detta att göra framför hans son, ett barn. Det är en hänsynslöshet som jag tycker den går knappt att beskriva. Det är en ofattbar grymhet. Det är en slags omänsklighet, en djurisk inställning till. Så här kan vi bara inte ha det.
Gang shootings and bombings have plagued Sweden's biggest cities and have spread to quieter suburbs in recent years. In recent months, the violence has shifted beyond low-income urban areas. Authorities say this could be down to gang members increasingly targeting the relatives of their rivals. A mandatory evacuation was declared for 47 towns and villages in the Kharkiv region. The settlements are those which are being shelled by Russian forces every day. Authorities stated that they have already agreed evacuation routes and booked places for temporary accommodation of people. Russia has significantly increased its air attacks and shellings in recent months, targeting major Ukrainian infrastructures. In a meeting with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko on Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the strikes are a response to Ukrainian strikes on Russian infrastructure. On Thursday, the European Parliament refused to sign off on a budget attempting to pressure EU leaders to support Ukraine with additional Patriot air defense systems. The Ukrainian parliament on Thursday tightened the rules of military conscription. One of the most controversial points of the new law include no more limits of time of service for soldiers who are already on front lines, including those who have been there since the very start of the war.
Vladimir Putin said Russia could negotiate with Ukraine about ending the war, but without certain conditions. Speaking with the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, he said Moscow has never refused to peacefully resolve the war with Ukraine. He also underlined Russia had not been invited to peace talks in Switzerland next week.
Нас не приглашают. Говорят, что мы отказываемся. Ну, было бы смешно, если бы не было так грустно. Но еще раз хочу подчеркнуть, что мы за. Но только не в формате навязывания нам каких бы то ни было схем, которые ничего не имеют общего с действительностью.
The Kremlin has dismissed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's ceasefire requests. This includes Moscow pulling back troops, paying compensation to Ukraine, and facing an international tribunal. Speaking from the Lithuanian capital at a Three Seas Initiative summit, Zelensky warned European leaders that a lack of assistance could lead to further casualties and an ongoing conflict.
The US Agency for International Development said on Thursday famine is already likely occurring in the northern Gaza Strip. Israel is under heavy international pressure and claims it is expanding access for humanitarian assistance. The IDF claims a brand new land crossing to northern Gaza would open soon. The US has restricted travel for its employees in Israel amid fears of an attack by Iran. Iran vowed to retaliate after Israel struck the Iranian consulate in Syria 11 days ago, killing 13 people. The US embassy said staff had been told not to travel outside the Greater Jerusalem, Tel Aviv or Beersheba areas.
תקיפה משטח איראן תהווה הוכחה ברורה על הכוונות האיראניות להסלים את המזרח התיכון. ולהפסיק להסתתר מאחורי השלוחים. בחודשים האחרונים שיפרנו וקידמנו את יכולות ההתקפה שלנו, ואנחנו נדע לפעול היכן שנדרש.
But the Israeli military's efforts are not supported by ultra-Orthodox Jews who have been fiercely protesting against the likely end of their exemption from military service. Last month, Israel's Supreme Court ordered an end to government subsidies for many ultra-Orthodox men who do not serve in the army.
Israel's military said it is prepared to defend itself against Iran if the country attacks. A deadly airstrike killed 12 people at an Iranian consulate in Syria at the beginning of the month. Tehran holds Israel responsible. The US continues to support Israel, however warns against further escalation in the Middle East.
We continue to be concerned about the risk of escalation in the Middle East, and specifically about the threats made in recent days by Iran against the state of Israel and the Israeli people. You saw the president make clear yesterday that we stand in strong support of Israel's security against these threats. Further escalation of this conflict doesn't just hurt Israel, doesn't just hurt Iran, doesn't just hurt the countries in the region, but that it harms every country in the world.
According to local media reports, the US general in charge of the Middle East is in Israel to discuss security threats. Tehran has voiced repeated threats to punish Israel for the attacks. US intelligence warns an attack by Israel is imminent.
Over 100,000 people have been evacuated after flooding hits regions of Russia and Kazakhstan, with aid being delivered by state authorities. The flooding is believed to have been caused by a sudden period of warm weather that caused a mass snowmelt in the Ural Mountains and some areas in Siberia. Russian authorities say they are delivering aid via transport aircraft, including tubes filled with water. These can be used to create flood barriers in areas where they say the flood situation is extremely complicated.
Archaeologists in Pompei have uncovered a banquet hall with frescoes on its walls. The walls of the hall in the Regio 9 were painted black with small figures of people overlaid on top. Scientists say this style developed for practical reasons as well as artistic.
Le pareti erano nere per evitare che il fumo delle lucerne si vedesse sui muri. Dunque qui ci si riuniva per celebrare dei banchetti dopo il tramonto e la luce tremolante delle lucerne faceva rivivere le immagini, si muovevano.
The paintings are believed to be of mythical figures connected to the Trojan War, like Helen of Troy, Apollo, Paris, and Cassandra. According to experts, the hall would have provided a refined setting for entertainment, such as banquets or conversations, for those pursuing an elegant lifestyle.
Denmark's Minister for Digital Government Marie Berger has called on Meta, Facebook's parent company, to do more to target fraudulent campaigns. Several well-known Danish TV presenters have been targeted in fake ads, with their photographs and words manipulated. Among the victims was high-profile TV reporter Divya Das.
Det er blevet vildere og vildere, og grovere og mere grænseoverskridende. Jeg tror, det værste ved det er, at Meta tilsyneladende ikke gør noget ved det. Det er mit klare indtryk, at de godt kan. Jeg er sikker på, at det er besværligt. Men det kan godt lade sig gøre.
The ads have featured Das's image in fake investment advertisements. One used an image of her with a bruised face, claiming she had been beaten by her husband. Danish authorities are urging all victims to report any abuses of their images to the police.